Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Alana. What's happening?
Having a great day, feeling good, excited to talk to you
Yes.
about social media stuff.
Social media, coaching, world domination. If we have time, private jet procurement. We could talk about
Hmm,
that.
that would be nice.
Yeah. See what we get to.
Yeah. But before we can really get there, I think we decided we're going to talk a little bit about how much you should be sharing on social media, sort of like that balance between oversharing and letting people know like what you're all about and what you're up to, but holding some things back to leave a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intrigue.
I have a lot to say about this.
Hmm.
One thing is, and the reason we're talking about this is because I got a really lovely compliment on one of my social media calls. I've got this 4 week training program going, and last week was week 3. You were there for the call, and
Yeah.
one of my students who's also followed me on Instagram for a while, she said, I have this really elegant balance of sharing my personal life, but also being, I don't remember exactly how she said it, but also being mysterious and really never oversharing and sharing in a manner that almost creates curiosity and wonder. And now I'm like hyping up what she said. But anyways, that's what she said, and I didn't realize that I was doing that. And the example that she gave was that when I'm traveling, for example, I will post like a photo or a video of an airport terminal, but not necessarily give details about why I'm there, where I'm going, or even enough information to know what airport it is. Right. So
Yeah.
it's this interesting imagery without hyper specific information that raises questions and curiosity. And after she brought that to my attention, I realized, yeah, I do that pretty often. But then
Yeah.
it raised the more important question that we're going to talk about today, um, which is, what level of detail, what level of personal detail, especially, is appropriate if one of the main purposes of your online presence is to attract clients.
Hmm. Yeah. And on top of that, really like how to build that rapport online through your social media presence and build that authority through whatever it is you're sharing. But I have a question before we go a little bit deeper. Based on that comment, because I was there and actually I was like typing in our shared notes to be like, this is a great topic for our podcast episode when she was complimenting you on this like dance that you do. Um, but that made me wonder, like, do you get people asking you, oh, what airport are you at? Where are you going? Like, does that increase your engagement in your DMs when you post sort of these obscure, mysterious images?
Yes, it does. It does. Often doing that. And I mean, that I think is one of the points that we're going to come to, is that anything you can do in your social media to elegantly create curiosity has a very good chance of increasing engagement. And when you increase engagement in any context, it tends to increase engagement in all contexts. This is a
Mm-hmm.
great tip for the listeners. So, when I post these kind of occasional vague photos or videos that allude to the fact that I'm up to something without saying what it is, it causes people to, first of all, watch those videos and images, potentially put a heart on them, put a like on them, or to message me and ask questions. And when it comes to social media, again, most engagement is great engagement. So to answer your question, yes, it does that. And initially that wasn't my intent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Initially, my intent was just to share something that I find personally interesting and that I was excited to share with other people. But it did have that, and it does have that bonus effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, where do we go from here? Why do we want to create this mystery, right? Why do we want to create curiosity with our social media? Um, why do we want to steer away from oversharing or being too in your face about like the details of your day.
Yeah. I, I find that there's kind of two schools of thought amongst different social media and business trainers when it comes to, and remember, this is the coaching podcast, the social media season. So we're looking at everything through the guise of attracting clients
Mm-hmm.
to our services using social media. So the two schools of thought really are, number one, nobody cares who you are or what you're doing in your personal life. They care about the results that you can get them. That's one school of thought. So post content that demonstrates your expertise and authority and gives value and helps people to feel empowered. That's one school of thought. The
Mm-hmm.
other major school of thought that I hear from a lot of business coaches and social media coaches and different figures is people will invest in your service if they like you and they trust you and they identify with you on a values / personal level, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the question, the natural question is, because we have different gurus, different authorities, different trainers who are all getting great results for themselves and their clients, many of them, but have very differing views on this, who's right and who's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And the question that you asked, Alana, like how much sharing is too much and why is it very distinctly possible to share too much, is another really good question. But I think first, let's talk about this. Is sharing your personal life on social media a good idea, or is being sticking to the facts only business?
Yeah.
What are your
I
thoughts?
mean, yeah. I mean, my thoughts on that are that it's a dance. And I think this is what this woman in your group call the other day brought up is like, it's that fine balance between those two things, right? Are you providing value? You need to be doing that 100%. Are you providing results? Are you showing people, you know, what type of outcome you offer? But then are you being human? Is there a human side to your business? Are you showing up authentically as you with like specific interests to draw people in who would want to be coached with you? Because when you think about it, coaching is a very personal exchange. Whether you're, you know, working with someone privately or in a group setting, or even, you know, listening to recorded hypnosis tracks, like you want to be able to, you need to like the person. And how do you like someone? Well, you relate to them. You know, have the same values. You maybe have similar interests, right? So you want to be showing some of that stuff in your content and balancing it with the facts, what you sell, what you offer, the outcomes that you provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I
yeah, I
agree.
think it's a balance.
I agree with you there. It's got to be a balance. I think if you're all business and and you take it to the extreme and you don't even have your face in your profile picture, et cetera, et cetera. I've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to buy from the faceless, nameless corporation of coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
want that intimate connection, and I use the term intimate very lightly. They want that connection, that human person to
Yeah.
relate to, right? Then on the flip side, and I think this is what we're gonna get into with this next question. If your social media presence is just a showcase of what you're doing in your personal life, and it's full of drama and it's full of clear oversharing and it's just documenting basically how you live, but you're not sharing actual value that's empowered, even if it's interesting, but you're not sharing value that's empowering, not demonstrating your expertise, not establishing you as authority, and not making it clear that you have an important service to offer to the world. Well, now you've gone way too far in the other direction, even if it is deepening rapport potentially with people because they like what you're doing and they agree with your values and they enjoy, how you document your travels and your day-to-day living. That doesn't necessarily equal sales or investment in your services. So as Alana is saying, it is a delicate balance and a dance. And I do want to talk about specifically why is leaning too much into oversharing personal stuff often going to be a bad idea, or
Yeah.
often, or at the very least, diminish your ability to attract clients. Let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Let's talk about
because
that.
because I do believe that is the case.
Yeah. And actually, two questions that I think are important to kind of ask yourself are, how do you want to present yourself? Right. So we're no longer in like 2007 Instagram land, right? Where we were just taking pictures of what we eat and, oversharing like our whole daily agenda, right? When we didn't really know what we were doing on social media. Now we know, right? Like there are a lot of tips out there that you can research, and we know what we're doing on social media. We're here and representing ourselves as a business. You're a coach, you're a professional, you want to build that rapport, you want to build that authority. And so really start thinking about, how do you want to present yourself? Because the way you're presenting yourself on social media is like the way you're presenting yourself basically to the world. So, would you tell the world about your most recent breakup, or, how angry you are at something or some person? You probably wouldn't. So that's one question I think you need to ask yourself, is how do you want to present yourself? And then really be intentional about how you're showing up, right? And think about like, how do I want to show up every day? What are some like key pieces of content that I want to share? Like I always share a good morning. I've been doing that for years. I know you do that as well. Since I've gone into working in sort of like intimacy coaching and talking a lot about sex and being very open about that, I've scaled back on showing pictures of my kids, because I just, they didn't sign up for a mom who's an intimacy coach. And I don't think that, I used to share a lot of stuff about my kids, but I choose not to now, just because of the type of work that I'm doing. So that was a very intentional decision on my part. Like, would I love to be sharing, basketball games and things that my kids are doing? For sure. But I'm choosing not to. And I can share that in other places. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really about like who you're being.
I think one key point to pull out of what you just said there, Alana, is the personal stuff that I'm sharing in alignment with what my niche is interested in.
Yeah.
And to your point, you don't feel potentially it's appropriate to share stuff about your kids when the focus of your content is on intimacy and related subjects. Probably your audience feels the same way. Probably if they're, in a mode where they're thinking about intimacy and they're thinking about their love life, et cetera, and they're consuming content specifically about that, they may not want to at the same time see, something out of right field, basically, that's not on point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it may be relevant, to have other pieces of your life in there. Like if you go to a conference that is, related to coaching or specifically to your niche, and you talk about what you're learning there, who you're meeting, et cetera, that's stuff that's technically from your personal life, but it's, for lack of a better term, it's on brand, right?
Right. For sure. Yeah.
And likewise, to give the audience one more example, there's a lot of interesting things that I do in my personal life that I don't think are really of interest to my audience, right? Like when I'm in the basement and I'm like fixing the pipes and, like at a majority, like that might be, maybe once in a while, something like that might be interesting. But my followers are coaches, entrepreneurs, people who are concerned with growing their coaching businesses. And so one of the huge reasons that people grow a coaching business or are interested in entrepreneurship is for freedom, right? Financial freedom, time freedom, travel freedom. So, me hanging out at the business class lounge at an airport actually is relevant to the interests of my following, even though it's not, part of my training or part of my coaching, like how to get into business class lounges is not on the curriculum at Ryan Modge's training, but it's relevant to the interests of my following.
Yeah. It's inspiring, right? It's inspirational content.
Yeah. Okay. We really do want to zero in on why is it maybe a good idea to err on the side of a little less sharing or a little undersharing than a little oversharing sometimes, until you find the right balance and until you figure out what you want to really focus on in your social media content, in addition to sharing value. And here's the thing, I'll explain it as concisely and maybe bluntly as I can. You don't want to damage your potential client's unconscious perception of you, such that they go from seeing you as an authority in helping them to seeing you as, a person who shares value, but they don't want to work with you. And it's really easy to do that. And it's because of a principle from that we learn about in hypnosis, and we learn about it in NLP as well, and in therapy as well. It's a principle called prestige. And everybody, I want you to forget about what you think the word prestige means in other contexts. We're talking about in a coach-client relationship. Prestige is an unconscious way, subconscious way that your client perceives you, where they see you as a trusted authority in solving their problem. And it's or in helping them to solve their problem, I should say. And it's very, very, very easy, if you overshare personal life details, to damage that perception of prestige. And it can happen outside the potential client's awareness, right? They may not even realize it happened, but some little switch turned off in their mind, and they no longer are drawn to work with you, even though they're still drawn to engage with you and follow you and like your content. Does it make sense the way I explained it, Alana?
Totally. Yeah. And what it makes me think of is like the relationship that you might have with your kids, right? So you want to be friendly with your kids. Like you want them to come to you with like wanting help and, advice and all of that stuff, but you don't want to become friends with your kids. And so that's kind of like what we're talking about here. It's like we want to open up enough online that we're like letting people into our life and recognizing like what we're into, and that we actually have a life outside of coaching. But we're not going to a level where they feel like they know every single intimate detail of our life, because that's not the type of relationship that we're wanting. Maybe once we get into like a one-on-one situation, where we are in a private situation, you might bring up something that is related to their problem. You know what I mean? But like on a big scale, I think you're absolutely right. Like you want to keep that containment, or like you want to keep things contained. You want to keep things clean, right? Like squeaky clean.
Yeah. I mean, clean is one way to put it, but here's the thing. It doesn't mean you can't be vulnerable or honest.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't share, what you do want to share. You just want to be mindful of like, again, is it on brand? If I'm a relationship or dating coach and I go through, a breakup, well, probably it is on brand for me to talk about my breakup and how I was able to successfully navigate it and cope, and what strategies I used to, mitigate the damage and to set myself up to move forward happily, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. But if I'm a coach for mechanics and I teach mechanics how to better serve their clients and attract more customers, probably it might not be appropriate for me to go into detail about my painful breakup on social media. If people look at me as an authority in the context of coaching auto mechanics about how to get more clients, which by the way is not something I do. It's just an example I'm using. But hopefully that makes sense for the audience, how something can be on brand for one person and maybe now you're getting into the territory of risking damaging that perception of prestige with a different coach, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I want to add on to that, because like going back to the relationship coach, right? Like if you're a relationship coach and you're going through a breakup and, you're using that as a way to highlight, your knowledge, right? How you're navigating it, you're still going to be very intentional about how you're sharing that breakup. You're not going to give all the juicy details, because you still want to maintain that level of prestige, right? So you're still going to be intentional about what you're choosing to share about that breakup, even though you're a relationship coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you still want to show that you've got the prestige, you've got the knowledge, that you were able to navigate it. Maybe you were lying in bed for like 3 days, crying and depressed and whatever, but you're not necessarily going to go there or be.
You might.
Yeah, you might.
It really depends how you present.
I think it does. Yeah. But I think it's all about intentionality at the end of the day, like really thinking, do they really need to know this?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I ask myself when I'm posting stuff.
Yeah. And again, it's absolutely not, we're not saying you can't be vulnerable or honest, because sometimes these like deep shares will really build rapport and will really
Yeah.
push the needle and push the prestige needle, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a
and we
matter
talked about that last week too, right? That's about being bold. So it's like navigating that dance of like, am I being bold, or am I doing this from a place of wanting pity or wanting validation, or, wanting some comfort, right? So it's just like really tuning in and asking yourself, what is the purpose of this share?
yeah,
Is this for me, or is this for my audience?
yeah. I know there's one shortcut we can use to know whether a share is a good share or not such a good idea. And if the motivation for posting the content is related to spite for somebody who you personally know,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not a good idea to post it.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, if you're calling out behavior that you didn't like in somebody who you actually know in real life and turning it into content, you're getting into murky waters, right?
Yeah.
Or if the answer to the following question is yes, you're in murky waters. Is somebody in my personal life going to see this and think that I'm continuing our argument now on social media to a wider audience? If the answer to that question is yes, people can see through that, and it
Yeah.
damages your credibility really, really quickly if you're not careful. Again,
Yeah.
not saying don't use events from your life as motivation for content, but I think maybe the better way to put it is don't continue arguments or disagreements from your life via your content on social media. People know when you're doing that,
Yeah.
and it can damage your credibility fast.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I meant when I said you want it to be clean. Like,
Yeah.
are you presenting this from a clean place in your heart, or are you presenting this from like, yeah, wanting to get revenge, or, wanting to stir the pot somewhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an important question to check in with yourself.
Cool.
Cool.
I think we covered some really good stuff. Let's
Yeah, I think we did.
hammer
So,
down to any remaining key points, and then let's hit the road.
yeah. Well, I guess, do we wrap it up into like a final soundbite?
I mean, maybe to tie the bow, it's like, what can we do? What can we do moving forward? What are some ideas for like easy ways to share that are going to build rapport, that we're not going to risk damaging desire to work with us as a paid coach, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Like,
what
if
are
you're,
your thoughts on that?
yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, if you're sitting here listening and being like, I don't know what the hell to share,
Yeah.
right?
Because now we've scared people. Now
Yeah.
like, well, nobody's going to buy your coaching if you talk about your breakup. So,
Don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
So what do people post? What should they, okay. I know one question we can answer is,
Okay.
you should be mindful of a ratio between like educational and value and inspirational content and personal connection content, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's those two sides of the coin, where you're giving content that's just to educate and empower and let your expertise shine a little bit. And then there's content that's like very clearly for that personal connection, let people get to know you, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a number in my mind of an approximate ratio. What do you think is an approximate ratio that would be good?
Well, I mean, I'll just go off of what I do, but I would say that I do like 20% personal and about 80% pushing to work with me, pushing towards my offers, talking about like value, education, information.
Yeah. So in my mind, I was saying the numbers was 5-1.
Okay.
which I think that's the same, right? 80% and 20%.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. No, I think it's more like 90. And,
Okay, yeah, it's converting.
but it's similar. I would say lean
Kind of,
on
but it's
less
close.
personal, right?
Yeah.
Less personal, more education, inspiration, in like information, value, your own offers, like all that stuff.
And here's why. Um, when you skip the scales too much into personal, you're risking being perceived as a hobbyist and enthusiast in your niche rather than as an expert and authority and a service provider in your
Yeah.
niche, right?
Yeah.
If the bulk of your content is clearly on the providing value side of the equation, then it sub communicates to the world. This is your job, this is your business, this is your career, this is what you do, this is the service that you bring to the world, rather than this is just something I'm really enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're, so 5-1, 4-1.
Yeah. I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like if you're kind of sitting there being like, what the heck do I post? That's one kind of rule, right? Like you want to have more businessy stuff to personal. But then if you're like, I don't even know what kind of personal stuff I would post, right?
Yes.
A couple of ideas are, for example, I'll just use me as an example because it's easy. Like I love walking. I go for a walk every morning. Walking is important to me because it's just one of my values to like be physically fit. So I often, while I'm on my walk in the morning, I'll just record me walking and have a good morning or have like a message or, so that's there, one of your pieces of content done. And
Yeah.
that's sort of like a personal thing. And something that other people can relate to. When I used to run, I would often post photos of me running in the morning. That was just kind of my thing. And I developed people who were also interested in running, but also interested in coaching. So
Yeah. That's a really good one. And that's an example of just simply documenting what your life is like.
yeah. And that I exist. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually a human that wakes up every day and I like go have a coffee. I go for a walk.
Yeah.
Right. So
Simple stuff.
simple
Simple.
stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
If you're really into cooking, you might want to like
Yeah.
post a photo of your food, or if you're really into going to restaurants, like some delicious foods that you love eating.
Here's the key though. Make sure it's photos and videos that you yourself have taken.
100%.
Don't use like stock photos or like, oh, Alana and Ryan said to post pictures of food and like here's an Arby's, sandwich that you found on the internet. No. It's got like people know the difference. People can tell if it's a picture you took or if it's something you found. So use your own content. I love the running example, but really it's just like I do a good morning post every day as well. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, everybody, please follow me on Instagram at Ryan Montes NLP because you'll see examples of this. But usually 99% of the time, my good morning post is just a quick little 10-second. It's technically a video, but I'm just holding the phone relatively still of the outside of my office building, or maybe it's a vanilla sky that I happen to be looking at in that moment, or it's the coffee machine pouring my coffee. It's just a little tiny slice of my life in a very genuine way. And, from the feedback I've gotten, people like it. They like it, and it's simple.
Yeah. And it's something that you can be consistent with too. Yeah. Like it doesn't feel hard because it's just like something you're already doing. So you just snap a photo in time of that. If you're on coaching calls too, another good thing is to like, just record or take a photo of you on the Zoom call, right? Like
documentation.
Documentation.
That's what we're driving at, just documenting the little things that you're doing anyways, right?
Yeah.
Or if there's something in your day that you're excited about, probably your followers would be interested in it too. So maybe just post a photo of it or talk about it. Or that's it. That's what I got.
Yeah, me too. I think that's it. If you have questions, you can always ask Ryan on Instagram at Ryan Montes NLP, or you can send me a message at Alana Banks Coaching on Instagram, or it's the No Excuses Podcast on Instagram.
So many Instagrams.
So many places to send us a message.
One more thing I'll say. Don't decide, find out. Don't decide what's the perfect thing to post or not post. You know,
Yeah.
find out, post stuff
Yeah.
that you think is interesting, and see if people like it. See if people are DMing you, being like, "Oh, I love that picture of the piano in the airport playing itself," which was a very popular story I posted on Instagram a while ago. Test, play, be experimental, have fun with this process. There's no reason for it to not be fun and to feel easy and light. So allow it to be that way.
Yeah. And I think the final thing, since last week was around being bold, I think this week is about being intentional.
Being intentional. Yeah. Have fun. Be intentional. Yeah. Post, and by the way, post whatever you want. Post whatever you want. Like,
yeah. Just disregard everything we just said.
Well, no, but I mean, like listen to these guidelines, absorb them, take what works for you, leave what doesn't. But at the end of the day, if there's something that you're excited about, hey, it's your social media presence. Don't let anybody tell you what to do or not do. Do it.
Yeah. And the thing is if you're excited about it and you take that inspired action and put that thing out there, then chances are your followers are going to feel that energy. They're going to feel that excitement, and they're going to be excited about it too. And they're going to think it's cool.
Precisely. Yeah. All
right.
Oh, there we go. Love it. Social media. We didn't even talk about artificial intelligence today.
Weird. No, we didn't. It didn't really fit in, to be honest.
Don't need it for this.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Maybe. Yeah. We'll ask ChatGPT if it's appropriate to mention next time. Just run it by the robot.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm Ryan Montes, NLP on Instagram, ryanmontes.com. Coming really soon is I'm going to have a very accessible but very, very high value membership program for people who want to really up their social media and online client attraction game, with teachings that really understand the subconscious mind and the subconscious mind of potential clients. So watch for that. Or if you want to get on the wait list, shoot me a DM.
Cool. Excited for that.
It's going to be so good. I'm
so good.
Excited for it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Alana Banks. You can follow me on Instagram at Alana Banks Coaching. And I've got 2 things going on right now. For the month of May, I'm doing my HypnoFlow classes, which is a mix of like breath work, intention setting, movement, and hypnosis all in one class. And that takes place at Downward Dog in Toronto. So if you're from Toronto, send me a message and register for the class. It's going to be so much fun, meeting up every Sunday morning. And tickets for that are $33, and the month for class pass is $99. And then I'm also running a group program right now for my sexual freedom side of my business. And so if you want to jump in on that, we're only 2 weeks in. We've got 4 more weeks to go, and the replays are available, but it's really to help you unlock your sexual confidence and feel more comfortable in the bedroom. And these classes are awesome. People are having huge transformations every week. So you can go and find out more about that on my website, alanabanks.com/embrace, or send me a message.
Yeah. By the way, both of those offers, tremendous value. I hate to use the word bargain, but they really are a bargain. I would, if you're even remotely considering the month pass for HypnoFlow or the Embrace program, pull the trigger now, because and I haven't discussed this with Alana, but I know the prices are going to go up.
Yeah, the train has left the station on this stuff. It really has.
So get in there, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Alana.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.